Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual Meet the Expert session. My name is David Phillips and I'm part of the My World Work Live team with Skills Development Scotland. We're all about helping you at home understand jobs in Scotland and what the future job market could look like. This week is Scottish Apprenticeship Week, and it's an opportunity to celebrate apprenticeships in Scotland and to share the value they have for individuals, employers and the economy. As you can imagine, all the activity for this week this year has been virtual, with people and businesses right across Scotland sharing photos, films and stories, and you can have a look at other activities by searching hashtag ScotAppWeek21. We are so glad that we can do this session as a part of this week's activities and share with you information about apprenticeships in advanced manufacturing. So in today's session, we're going to cover a quick overview of the manufacturing sector. We're going to look at opportunities within the sector, an introduction to our experts today, Jayne Clark and Adam Stump from NMIS and AFRC, and give you a chance to ask our experts any questions you may have. Please get involved as much as possible and use the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen to ask us questions as we go through the session. We'll try to answer as many as we possibly can. Don't worry, everything you ask today can be anonymous and you can select that option at in the Q&A box. Just before I get started, I would like to let you know that today's session is being recorded so that young people who could not make it today can still access the resources. It will be available for everyone to watch on the My World of Work YouTube channel. That means you can go back and rewatch everything that's been talked about today. First of all, let's have a look at the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector is vast and spreads into many different industries like aerospace, space, climate, energy, and life and chemical sciences, construction, and so many more. It takes place in almost all regions of Scotland, with medical manufacturing taking place in the north and satellite and spacecraft manufacturing taking place in the central belt. There are currently just about 190,000 people employed in manufacturing, with a goal to increase this by 2,500 roles a year. Apprenticeships are available for entering manufacturing, usually through an engineering discipline, although there is an advanced manufacturing apprenticeship currently in development, dealing with Industry 4.0 and the digital skills required for manufacturing. Right, now let me introduce you to Jayne Clark and Adam Stump from the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland. So could you guys give us an idea of who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are now? And if we could start with Jayne, that would be great.
Hello, so my name is Jayne Clark and I currently work in the Residual Stress Lab within the Advanced Forming Research Centre. So kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis is I measure the residual stresses within metals using like lasers, x-rays, drills, a kind of whole load of different things. So residual stresses are basically stresses that are locked in a part once it's no longer being used, and they can be there because of how it was manufactured, how it's been heat treated, or just how it's actually been used day to day. So kind of one way you can visualise what a residual stress is if you think of a bridge. An engineer can calculate that maybe this bridge will survive for 100 years based on the material that they use to build it. But what they don't necessarily know is if there are any residual stresses in the material they've used, which could actually make it weaker than they think. So instead of lasting 100 years, it might only last 80 because these stresses can cause a weakness, which means it will fail early. But you also get beneficial ones. So if you think of your phone screen, there are compressive residual stresses deliberately put into it so that it makes it a lot harder for cracks to grow. So that is one way that they've kind of developed to make your phones a lot stronger than they are. But I didn't start out in residual stress. I left school after 5th year to start an apprenticeship in the AFRC in manufacturing. So it was largely based around milling, turning and electric discharge machining. But there was programming, modelling, drawing, like a whole host of different things that I learned through my apprenticeship. I did a HNC while I was doing it, alongside getting my 3Q. and then I decided that I wanted to further my qualifications. So towards the end of my apprenticeship, I actually started doing a degree part-time, and then that's when I moved into the residual stress lab, when I kind of learned there were different ways that I could take your career. You could use the knowledge I've learned from manufacturing and start to kind of specialise it based on my degree. And I'm now doing a master's in advanced manufacturing while still working part-time in the FRC.
That's excellent. That's really interesting. Thanks very much, Jayne. So if we could go to Adam, and if you just tell us a wee bit about what you do and your journey and how you got to where you are today. That'd be
great. So I'm Adam. I work at the Advanced Farming Research Centre as an IT technician, an apprentice. I work in the IT department where there's lots of big, expensive computers, tablets, servers, and other cool stuff. There's tons of interesting things to me that I get to do that I never would have done had I gone into some other kind of role, another place. We got an IBM supercomputer module server for one of our modeling teams, which I got to help with setting up. I started an apprenticeship similar to Jayne. I joined after 6 years under a contract with Strathclyde University. I've just finished my first year of the apprenticeship, and it's been really good fun. There's lots of good people to work with and tons of tech and stuff to play with. Apprenticeships are really good, and 100% recommend one because you get to learn on the job and you also get paid to do it. Helps you get some real world experience that's definitely useful, and especially with IT, it's good to get into the kind of get your foot in the door with regards to tech and maybe a career in that.
Fantastic. So I think what we'll do is we'll move straight on to some questions. So I think possibly the first question is, what skills do you use most in your day-to-day job? And we'll start with Adam since you're already on the screen.
Yeah, no worries. So personally, sorry, what was the question?
What skills do you use in your day-to-day job the most?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just problem solving, because with IT you're presented with an issue that someone might have to do with a computer, or maybe there's a file issue. You just have to kind of work through steps and try and figure out what's wrong and what you can do to fix it. And maybe you need to go to other people because it's a specialized topic that you're not too familiar with. But in the end, as long as you get it done, that's all that matters.
Excellent. And if we could ask Jayne the same question, so that's what skills do you use the most in your day-to-day job?
We're quite similar to, as Adam said, problem solving and kind of pragmatic thinking is really important in our lab. So the parts that you deal with in the FRC, it's always a different material, it's got a different shape, they're looking for kind of different results from you, and you have to be able to kind of stop, think about how you're going to do the job before you rush in and start it. Because most of the jobs you will find little niggles and little problems, but you can always overcome them. So that's kind of the most important thing. You can almost get around every problem that you have if you can kind of stop, look at it, think about it, and then you'll know maybe you have to ask someone else, or maybe you have to kind of research something, or you have to kind of pull back to something you've learned in university or something you know from school. But yeah, definitely your problem solving is massive in our lab.
Excellent. So problem solving, quite a bit of communication for the sounds of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a question here, which is, why did you choose an apprenticeship route? So I'm guessing that's opposed to college or university. So we'll start with you, Jayne.
So when I was in school, I always thought, I have to stay until the end of 6th year, I have to choose a degree, and then I get a job after that. But when I started looking at degrees, I was really good at maths, and I really liked graph comm in school. So I was like, oh, that makes sense, I'll do engineering. And then I looked at the engineering degrees and I just started to get really confused. There were so many that were out there that I was like, I don't really know what they actually mean, like what the differences is between these different courses. Even once you read into them, I still didn't know which one I actually wanted to do. So instead of that, I started thinking, well, maybe go down the apprenticeship route so that I could gain experience in them first, which is I've been so grateful to do, because even if worse came to worse, I figured if I don't actually like it, I've spent 4 years, I've got myself qualifications, experience, and you've earned a wage. It seemed like no matter what happened, you'd almost started the safe route. And I've just been really fortunate that I did actually enjoy it. and I've then went on to go to university part-time because I still do want a job. Like, I want to have kind of that solid foundation, and it means that I'm only maybe 2 years behind everybody that I went to school with and has just went straight on to do a degree, but I've got 7 years of experience alongside the qualifications I've got, so it just kind of seemed like a win-win to me to go down the apprenticeship route.
Excellent. That's actually quite an interesting way to look at it, and the bit about your courses and reading a course title and not necessarily knowing exactly what you're going to be doing as opposed to the apprenticeship. I quite like that, actually. So what we'll do is we'll ask the same question to Adam. So Adam, that's just why did you choose an apprenticeship route as opposed to another route?
I might be a bit biased, but I think it's just superior to going to college or university because of the fact that you're studying and you're kind of earning some money to like pay for whatever rents and fun stuff, put it into savings. And it's not like you're expected to work like a full-time job in like a professional role and study full-time at the same, like side by side. You're kind of working and studying at the same time, so parts of your job tie into what you need to do to complete your apprenticeship. So it's kind of you're almost studying as you're working just by doing the things because you're gaining that experience.
Okay, excellent. That actually nicely leads on to the next question, which is when you're doing an apprenticeship, how do you find fitting in working and studying? I mean, it sounds like a lot to do. So how is that for you?
Yeah, there's definitely, again, like I said, not an expectation for you to be doing everything full time all at once. There's time. I know personally, there's times that I can just be like to my manager, "Oh, can I work on this for my apprenticeship stuff?" And he'll be like, "Yeah, sure, just go and sit, just do whatever." And then a lot of it is actually just, at least in IT for my role, is kind of more proving that I can do things like fixing this thing or that I can do this thing in order to. So it's more just kind of showing that I can do what I say that I can do.
Yep, excellent. And Jayne, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
I was quite similar when I was in the workshop for my apprenticeship. A lot of what I was actually graded on for my apprenticeship was my ability to machine components. So that's actually what you spent a lot of your time doing, especially at the start, was working directly on the apprenticeship, because by making this part that they wanted you to make, you were learning how to use the machine, how to program, and that just kind of eventually led into working on specific project work for the AFRC. So when it was the apprenticeship, it wasn't like you had to do your 9 to 5 in work and then you had to go home and you spent hours studying to complete all that you needed for the qualification. It was just really kind of well ingrained in your working day. But it also teaches you kind of, I think I learned really good time management from it as well, because you've got the time to do it, so there's not the stress. You have the time to sit back and figure out how you work it around your day. So you'll spend some time shadowing somebody, learning when they're on like a special project, and then you'll go back and you'll start working on your own parts, or you'll start working on some of the kind of write-up question side of it. But it definitely was a lot easier to manage and spread than I thought it might have been to begin with.
Fantastic. That will be encouraging for anybody wanting to take up an apprenticeship. So we'll stick with you for the next question. So what part of the job appealed to you?
I think I really liked graphic communication when I was in school. So I really liked the freehand drawings, and I also liked modelling with the computer softwares. So I like the idea of being able to integrate a sort of almost desk-based, computer-based kind of part of a job with also having a physical and active side of it. So that's what really appealed to me, getting to kind of be out of the machines, operate them, make things, be very hands-on, but at the same time I was also getting the experience. I was still getting to kind of create drawings, create models, write up programs, and I just really wanted kind of a mixture. I never wanted to spend 7 hours at a desk, but I like the fact that I do have the option that you do get to sit for part of your day and you do get to learn these interesting softwares.
Fantastic. So we'll ask the same question to Adam. So what part of your job, what is it that appealed to you about the job you're currently doing?
I think for me, I was quite indecisive about where I wanted to take my career for a while. I thought I wanted to do like software development or something. But then as time went on, I kind of realized I was more interested in the hardware aspect of technology. So like your computers, servers, etc. So for me, it was like, well, I build computers in my spare time. I like to like benchmark them, do all this fun stuff with cool tech. So why not work and do a job in that kind of area? So that's definitely what drew me towards IT in particular. And it's definitely not disappointed. There's so much high-end technology that I could never afford on my own that I'm able to just work with and basically mess around with before it goes out to people. But yeah, it's great, definitely.
Excellent. So it sounds like you've turned something you enjoy doing in your spare time into something you can do as a job as well, which is pretty cool.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So again, this leads quite nicely into the next question that's come in. So it sounds like you both work with quite cool machines. So what would you say is the best piece of kit or best pieces of kit that you have got to play with in your job?
Recently, I never actually got hands on these before they went out. But there was we got some PCs that came in with this might mean nothing to some people, but anyone it does will be pretty cool. We got some Ryzen 9 3950X's dual RTX Titans and 64 gig of RAM just for our VR team, and that was like, wow. And then more recently, a couple weeks ago, we got a modeling workstation with an RTX 6000 in it. So pretty cool, expensive kit.
So pretty high-end virtual rendering graphics machines.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, actually. I like that. Definitely. So we'll ask the same question to Jayne.
So in my current role in the lab, some of the kind of really good kit we've got X-ray diffraction equipment, which means it basically sends a beam of X-ray into a part, and that's then reflected back and read by these detectors, and that's what's used to determine the stresses in the part based on the time and the angle that kind of these are sent back at. Is one of ours, and we've just recently getting a portable version in, so that'd be really exciting. So we can actually take it on site and we can measure large components that we couldn't take into the lab or ones that are actually in situ and in use. And then I think when it was my apprenticeship in the workshop, we had the D&G Mori 5-axis machines. So there was just so much you could do with them, so many kind of extensive programs and just kind of stuff that you wouldn't get to use in a lot of other places. So we were fortunate to be beyond just operating the equipment. We actually got to program it as well, which was certainly a rarity. We were really lucky.
Excellent. So the next question I have, and we'll just put this one to you, Jayne, since you're on the screen. Do you have to work weekends, or is it pretty much 9 to 5?
We are just 9 to 5 generally in the FRC. There is the options that if you wanted to come in to kind of rush a project through, that we could come in at the weekends, and it would just be a case of if I wanted to come in on Saturday because there was a deadline for Monday, I could come in on a Saturday and then you would get that time back at some point. But yeah, we're not kind of guilted into overtime or excessively pressured in here. It is really relaxed and a really good fun place to work. I'm one of my few people in my kind of friend group that have a nice easy 9 to 5 job. The rest of them are working all sorts of hours, random days, and I get to just know that I can enjoy my weekends unless I decide otherwise.
There is something to be said for that. So we'll put the same question to Adam. So how is it for you, Adam? Do you have to work weekends, or is it pretty much 9 to 5?
Yeah, it's the exact same for me. It's good because it's flexible. If I wanted to work like instead of 9 to 5, like 8 to 4, I'd be able to do that perfectly fine just if I needed to get away early. But yeah, it's literally 9 to 5. You don't need to do anything you don't want to in excess of what's in your contract, effectively.
Excellent. So what we'll do is we'll move on to another question. So what would you say, this is kind of double-edged, so what would you say is the best and the most challenging part of your job?
Ooh, it's a good one. The best part, I think I've said it over and over, but it's just all the cool stuff that I get to, interact with that I normally never would have. Between that and like meeting new people on the job and just getting to do cool stuff, that's probably the best part. The worst part is probably getting up in the morning because that's just life, I don't enjoy it. I don't think I ever will. It's always just a pain, but you gotta just live through it.
That's fair enough. I will put the same question to Jayne. So, Jayne, what is the most enjoyable and the most challenging parts, respectively, of your job?
I think for myself, you can almost answer the same question, kind of give the same answer for that. So I love how many different kind of bits of kit that I can operate. It's something that I take a lot of pride in, and it's really exciting to be able to use them so I can still go back into the workshop and operate the machinery in there if it's beneficial to me in the lab. And then there's all the high-end kit we've got in the lab. But the kind of other end that comes with that is that it is difficult to remember it all. There are so many different machines that I've been trained on and softwares that sometimes to go back to when you have to sit back for a couple of minutes, think back to when you used to use it, or even like we'll keep all the training manuals and things. So it is so good, and I'm so fortunate with what I'm able to do. It just sometimes it is a lot, and you have to just kind of keep notes when you're getting trained and things like that. I have stuff to go back to, but that probably is the most challenging thing, is fitting all of it in your brain.
Yeah. So most enjoyable part is using all the different kit, and the most challenging part is remembering all the different kit.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. So what we'll do now is we've got a question which is, are there apprenticeships? So I'm guessing that's obviously AFRC and NMIS do apprenticeships. So do you know anything about the apprenticeships that NMIS and AFRC do?
Yeah, so they do lots of different ones. So Adam's obviously in the IT side. There have been admin apprentices in the past. Myself and the other apprentice I started with, we were based in just the cold workshop is what we called it. So that was like mills, lathes and EDMs. The most recent set of apprentices that we've brought on, we brought 5 apprentices on, and they've expanded the apprenticeship even further. So they are doing a lot of what I did to start with, and they've also expanded out into our forging and forming technologies. So pretty much everything in the centre now, there is the option to get an apprenticeship in it. And I mean, even like I say with myself, I started out in one apprenticeship, and then through my career I've moved into a different lab. So it was like a foot in the door, and then there's so many places you can go within the centre. But yeah, so I think this summer, sorry, should be the next kind of influx of apprentices. They tend to come in over the summer.
Excellent. Well, while we've got you here, Jayne, there's a question come in specifically for you, which is, are there more males in this sector? If so, how do you find that?
I think there is kind of generally in the sector. In the materials and residual stress team that I'm in, we are quite evenly split down the middle of male and female. When I was in the workshop, especially at the start, there were more males than females, but it was never an issue. It's never held me back. If anything, I've just got hunters at uncles that like trained me, and like you could go to them with your problems, like they'll take you under their wing, and just there was never any issue. I was never treated any differently to the male apprentice that came in alongside me. It was just like this just fun banter place that we worked in. It was never it's never held me back. I say in university I've never felt like it held me back either, or when I was in college for the apprenticeship. So I think if you're a female considering going into something that you're worried is like a male dominated role, don't let it worry you or hold you back. I don't even think I thought about it or noticed it when I was doing my apprenticeship, generally the people who do jobs like this and that have like a skill, as they always called it, like to get your trade papers, they have a passion for what they do. It's all about the job they're doing and the parts they're creating, that they just want to pass that knowledge on to you, they want to help you, and they want to train you. It's just they don't really look at male, female, certainly in my experience anyway. It's been good.
Excellent. That's a very positive and encouraging thing. So what we'll do is we'll move on to Adam, and we've got the question that everybody always asks. So what is the money like? So you don't need to tell us exactly what you're on, but how have you found the money when you've been working as an apprentice?
Yeah, it's nothing to scoff at. If you really wanted, you could probably go find my exact contract somewhere online and look at it. But yeah, it's definitely enough for me to afford rent, put some into savings, and then get myself some nice things, or maybe like a Nando's delivered or something. But I think it's definitely better than having to go into university or college and taking out a loan and then having to repay that. I know those loans aren't the worst, but instead of paying to get your education and get into a career, you're getting paid to do so. So I think it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, that's definitely a big plus. So I'll ask you this question as well, and then I'll move back to Jayne with these two. But when you do your job, are you based on one site? So are you in front of your computer, or do you have to go out to different sites and do different roles, or work in different areas?
So for me, at the start, there was a big rush to get everyone working from home. So we had to get a lot of like home working stuff set up, make sure people had all the kit that they could do their jobs from home. And then after that, my entire team got kind of shifted just to offsite, just kind of helping with stuff we could remotely. And then we got at some point in the summer, we got the green light to start going back in. And because especially my role is mostly hands-on, because it's more the hardware side, that actually allowed me to start, doing what I needed to do, because there's only so much you can do remotely when your job is quite literally like hardware and technology.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just been kind of going in a couple days a week to the site and working, doing what I need to do.
So I'm going to ask you this question purely for curiosity, but if you started as an IT apprentice during the whole kind of COVID thing, how was that for you? Was that a bit of a steep learning curve?
No, I wouldn't say so. I started just before COVID, so I had a bit of time to get used to it. But another IT apprentice, who I'm working with, started directly right slap bang in the middle. I don't think he's had a particularly hard time, because it's not like me where I was just thrown into the workplace, meet all these people, start doing stuff. I reckon starting during COVID is a bit nicer, because you get to kind of slowly work into things, just kind of see what's happening, and then you can start doing physical stuff. And then when stuff goes back to normal, you'll kind of have an easier time just getting used to the atmosphere, etc.
Yeah, so your job kind of adapted to what the situation was.
Yeah, somewhat.
Excellent. So we'll move back to Jayne, and I'll ask you the same question, Jayne. What is the money like? You don't need to tell us your exact wage, but how did you find an apprenticeship wage?
I honestly thought it was amazing. Like, when I was doing my apprenticeship, I don't think I've ever saved so much money in my life. Like, just not being used to having it, staying at home with my parents. Like, I lived really close, so I didn't really need to spend much money on petrol. Like, I was honestly have been like, yeah, I can go on holiday, like I can do anything. It honestly, the shock of being a kid in fifth year to then to having that wage, and you're like, all you're doing is going to college. I'm like, it was brilliant, and it progresses up each year as you move through your apprenticeship and then into your kind of full-time role. So the wage aspect for it, I still think I'm so lucky at 24 to be in here doing this, earning this money.
Excellent. So what about for yourself? So obviously there's a fairly practical side to your job, but are you in the workshop, or are you out in sites, or how does that work for you? And how has COVID affected that?
For the most part, I'm on site. So a lot of time it'll be between the lab, and then some of the work will be on my desk. But we also have another site, the Lightweight Manufacturing Centre, and we've got new vibratory equipment in it that, because of the noise that she's generated, it is in this other site, basically where there's a lot less people and there's not like a fully packed out office that we do have here when COVID isn't a thing. So a lot of our time can also be spent over there. And with the new portable kit that we're bringing in, it opens up the opportunity for us to go to customer sites and actually measure parts there. So there's like so many different kind of places you can be, and depending on how well you know your schedule, you'll know whether you're going to be here next week or over at LMC, or sometimes it's suddenly all at once and you're kind of pulled loads of different directions. But it is good fun. And as for COVID, when it first came in, I was working from home because kind of a lot of things did grind to the halt, even the project work. So caught up in all of my paperwork, loads of health and safety paperwork that you can get involved in if you go looking for it. And then we started manufacturing visors to go to local charities. So that was when I was first brought back into the building, and then it kind of increased from then. So I've been in full time since July, I would say, and I'm really grateful for it. I love being able to get up and leave the house most days. And then it's just, if there isn't actually work to be done in the lab, I will just work from home to get the paperwork done. But most of the time at the moment, I'm almost back to normal now that we're in the lab, just with a lot less people around me in the office.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to ask one last question to both of you, and then we will finish up the session. So the last question is, what advice would you give someone at school considering your role? So we'll start with you, Jayne.
I think if you're in school, don't stress out about your subject choices. I know when I was in school, I was really worried. So I thought from like maybe third year, even second year, that I loved GraphCom and that's kind of where I wanted to base my career. But I didn't trust myself enough. So I spread myself and my subjects in all the different kind of areas. So I was like, make sure you've got a language and a science and all this kind of stuff. Where I didn't pick physics, so I didn't narrow myself down into engineering entirely, even though in my head I was like, you want to do it, but I was like, pick the safe option. And I wish I just trusted myself that it was something I enjoyed and I was good at it. There's plenty of degrees and jobs and futures in it, that I just wish I'd studied, because it would have been more beneficial for me now if I did have a higher in physics. Now, it never stopped me getting the job, so also don't stress out about that. If you do not have higher physics, it doesn't mean you cannot get into an engineering job. Don't be fooled by that either. But it just would have been a bit more helpful that when I started my degree, I wouldn't have had to have went back and learned some higher stuff that I didn't know. I was fortunate to work around loads of experts that were able to help me. But yeah, I wish I just trusted myself when I was in school and I was looking at my subjects. And if there is something that you enjoy and you think that that would be a fun career and that you would you would like to study it and enjoy doing it, just trust yourself and pick those subjects, and don't stress that if you pick the wrong subject that you're not going to have a career. Like, I studied biology. I have not used biology since school. I've forgotten almost everything I did, but it is not meant I've not been able to go down the like engineering, physicsy route. Your subjects, pick what you want, and they're not the be all and end all. Don't worry about ruining your life if you didn't pick the perfect subjects in fifth year.
So trust in yourself, that's a good message for anybody, to be honest, as well. So we'll put that question to Adam and then we'll wrap up. So Adam, what advice would you give to someone considering your role?
I think I'd say try and get a bit of work experience in. It doesn't matter where, but I know most schools do like a week of work experience at some point, but I think if you go out of your way to go and get some more, even if it's just like, for me, I did I worked as a mechanic for a year in my last year of school, and that's completely unrelated to my current job, but I think working in that professional environment helped me prepare for when I actually got into the workplace and made it a lot easier to kind of just get involved with things. But yeah, my number one advice would be just get some experience working somewhere, working anywhere, just get out there.
That is excellent advice. So thanks very much, Adam and Jane. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so thanks for both giving us an insight into what you do and your role, and your excellent answers to the questions we've had today. I'd also like to thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the session useful and that you've learned a bit more about the manufacturing sector. You can find out more about careers at myworldofwork.co.uk. If you want to learn about any of Scotland's critical occupations, sectors, or how to get into these areas of work, have a look at the MyWow website and apprenticeship.scot. If you've got any questions about today's careers, get in touch with your school careers advisor, as they will have more information for you and guidance. And remember, you can get in touch with us too. This session has been recorded, so you can view it as many times as you want at a later date and have a look at the list of future sessions that are available. So thanks again. I hope you've enjoyed the session and have a very nice day.